Hello everyone, I am Alex, also known as Solanus Dracone, and welcome back to my Pern Primer Series Episode 7. This is to be the penultimate episode of the Primer Series, as this will conclude my discussion of the Pernese political powers. The remaining episode will just be a miscellaneous combination of a few other Pernese foods and customs. So, today's episode is about the Weyrs, and this one's going to be good because the Weyrs are regarded as the most glamorous and interesting places. More time is spent in the Weyrs and with Weyr doings than any other place besides the Harper Hall, and most importantly, the Weyrs are where the dragons are. When the first dragon riders left Fort Hold, it was for several reasons. A large part of it was indeed for the sake of lightening the population there, as it was overcrowding rather swiftly. The biggest reason, though, is that dragon riders really are a different type of person. Dragon riding is a full-time job. Not only does a rider have to do their primary duty, which is flying threadfall, but tending to a dragon is a rather intensive process. These are no mere livestock. These are thinking, practically sacred beings, and they require as much care and attention as the average human child, only more so because their needs are so different. While flying thread is what they do for a living, they spend most of their time training and drilling. It really needs to be understood just how different Weyr life is from Hold life. I will go into that in more detail later, but for now, let's get the facts out of the way. As of the beginning of the 9th Pass, there are 6 Weyrs: Fort, Bendon, Telgar, High Reaches, Ista, and Iggen. Technically, there's only one Weyr at the actual beginning of the 9th Pass, but the establishment of 6 Weyrs had occurred. It's pretty hard to explain why this is without revealing story, so I'll just say it. The 8th Pass was followed by a long interval of 400 years rather than 200. Near the beginning of that interval, the entire populations of all the Weyrs except for Bendon just simply vanished, completely, gone without a trace or anything as much as a note explaining why or where they went. This is all story related for the plot of the books though, so that's all I'm going to say about it in the Primer series and leave it at that. The Weyr has its own government structure, with 3 particular positions being the ones who run the place. There is a Weyr leader, a Weyr woman, and the head woman. The Weyr woman is technically the most powerful member of the Weyr. Who becomes Weyr woman is decided by who is riding the most senior queen dragon at the Weyr. The position of a Weyr woman is a lifelong job. A Weyr woman may stay Weyr woman indefinitely until they either step down, or their dragon dies, or is unable to lay eggs any longer. Even bad behavior is not enough to oust a Weyr woman. That plays into just how different the dragon riders are from the holders. The primary consideration is always the dragon, and one does not simply send away a queen dragon who is still fertile. It just isn't an option. A Weyr is stuck with a Weyr woman until such time as there is a new Weyr woman. The only way there is a new Weyr woman is when a junior queen is promoted due to the removal of a senior queen for the above-mentioned reasons. The Weyr woman's duties include tending to the management of the Weyr, collaborating with the head woman on making sure that the Weyr is fully supplied and well-stocked. The position of Weyr woman also includes the management of the Weyr records, which some do, but it's also okay for them to assign the duty to a harper in the Weyr. I should also mention that there is a difference between Weyr woman, capital W, and Weyr woman, lowercase w. A Weyr woman, lowercase w, simply means that this is a woman who rides a dragon, most often a junior queen. A Weyr woman, capital W, is the actual queen of the Weyr. Another function the Weyr woman serves can be marshalling the other dragons into line. A queen dragon exerts an authority which is biologically hard-coded into other lesser dragons. If a queen dragon orders any other dragon under their care to do something, or most usually not to do something, no other dragon is going to disobey them. It doesn't even matter if the queen is from another Weyr. If there is a queen dragon who is certifiably in charge of a Weyr and is recognized as such by any who live within the Weyr, that queen's orders are going to be followed. This can be especially helpful when enforcing Weyr quarantines, and also helping to soothe the dragons who have been thread-scored and need to calm the hell down so the healers can work on them. A quarantine can't very well work if people are leaving the damn Weyr and getting in. The Weyr Leader is the second acting title within a Weyr. The Weyr Leader sets Weyr policy. It is always a Bronze Rider and their dragon who get that position. The Weyr Leader is mainly in charge of organizing the fighting wings appropriately. This position carries with it the highest authority within the Weyr, though not necessarily the greatest power. A Weyr Leader is chosen through the mating flights. Whoever's bronze dragon manages to catch and mate with the senior queen dragon is then the new Weyr Leader. You might think that this would make for a rather difficult time in keeping any sort of policy going. But in general, two things can keep a Weyr leadership in power through multiple mating flights. Firstly, if their bronze is the one who caught the queen, then that means that bronze is probably the biggest and strongest in the Weyr and is likely to catch the queen again next mating flight. Secondly, there is a lot of influence by the preference of the queen dragon herself. Dragons can form emotional bonds with their favorite mates. That's not to say that this is the primary consideration by any means. A draconic mating flight is fueled by one thing alone: passion. Still, Weyr leaderships can go on for a very long time on these two things alone, even though it is entirely possible for a new Weyr leader to emerge from a mating flight and completely disrupt the flow. One third thing which influences a mating flight's outcome is sometimes how the Weyr in general feels about the current Weyr leader. A Weyr is a place of multiple emotions. Dragons do not keep their feelings hidden from their riders, and the reverse is generally true. Any dragon will feel the irritation of other dragons. What I'm trying to say is that enough riders, and by proxy their dragons, don't feel positively inclined toward the current Weyr leader, then those feelings will filter up to the queen. Now, this is only vaguely mentioned in one of the books, but it is there. I choose to take it to mean that the queen may resist the current bronze dragon more, though this is largely unsubstantiated and may not be the actual case. Suffice it to say, the mood of a Weyr is definitely indicated as being capable of influencing the outcome of a mating flight. I should interject at this point, because there is no better place to put it. I mentioned in the holds episode which Weyrs fly thread over which holds. The truth of the matter is that while indeed the larger portion of a hold may be overseen by a single Weyr, because threadfall covers such vast distances, then the Weyr and hold jurisdictions sort of overlap a bit. And so, for instance, you can expect Bendon riders to fly threadfall over the northern section of an Arat hold, for instance, or Igan Weyr to cover some of Telgar's land. Hell, you often have Weyrs trading off during threadfall, so Weyr jurisdiction isn't the set-in-stone thing I may have made it out to be. For more information on which lands a Weyr generally covers, go see the wiki. The third major position within the Weyr is the headwoman. I shouldn't say it that way, though. Every single hold and hall has a headwoman. They are the ones in charge of managing the domestic affairs of day-to-day life within any human establishment. They sort out the cooking and the cleaning crews, and the day-to-day mundane human things. This sounds like it is very similar to the duty of a Weirwoman, but the headwoman's focus is more primarily upon the non-dragon riding members of a Weyr, whereas the focus of the Weirwoman will be towards the dragon riders. They do work very closely, however, and their duties do overlap. The word of the headwoman anywhere on Pern is considered rather important. This is the lady you trust to keep everyone fed and healthy. You didn't choose her because you don't think she knows her stuff. This is true for Hold, Hall, and Weyr, Pern-wide. I mentioned that there are non-dragon riding people within a Weyr. While dragon riders are the preeminent members of the Weyr, and the reason that the Weyr exists, they can't very well see to the day-to-day drudgery necessary to keep things running. A rider's focus has got to be first and foremost upon their dragon, and secondly, upon training for, as well as acting out, their primary duty, the eradication of thread from Pern's skies. This is very much a full-time job. For all the other tasks, there are the Weirfolk. Weirfolk are simply any people who live within a Weyr upon a permanent or semi-permanent basis, who are its staff and are not dragon riders. When a queen dragon lays a clutch of eggs, then most of the time, a search is initiated. I say most of the time because some Weyr leaders may have isolationist policies and look within the Weyr folk's children for their candidates and go no further. Still, it is much more common for the Weyr to look outside their walls for candidates to stand before the eggs. The dragon riders will fly out to every hold and hall within their jurisdiction, and sometimes beyond, with the permission of the other Weyrs, of course, to find suitable potential matches for the future dragon hatchlings. Dragons themselves are the ones who make the call. Being creatures whose primary form of communication is telepathic, naturally they are very psychically minded. As a point of interest, blue dragons are regarded as being the most sensitive to eligible children. If a dragon senses any youngsters who have what it takes to be a dragon rider, then these youths will be taken, with the parents' permission of course, back to the Weyr. There they will stay however long it takes for the current clutch of eggs to hatch. From there, it goes pretty predictably. Some of them will be new dragon riders, and some of them will not be. It is considered a good idea to bring more kids than eggs to give the hatchlings a proper range to choose from. Those unfortunate youths who do not become dragon riders may either stay on at the Weyr, living there to attend future hatchings, or go back to the hold or hall from whence they came. The age range for eligibility to impress a dragon is typically the range of puberty, though there's wiggle room based upon the individual child's maturity. Too young, and they don't have enough mental capacity to be able to handle such a powerful mind link. Too old, and their minds have begun to grow too rigid to be compatible with the merging of another soul. While it's not outright stated, if a candidate fails on too many hatchings, they will cease to be considered. This can be a very disappointing thing, and it's not uncommon for someone who has been rejected multiple times to want to leave the Weyr. Weyr life is vastly different from hold and hall life in one major aspect. Sexuality is much more an open and accepted thing. It would take someone pretty ignorant and stupid to argue very hard about draconic choice of partner. Once a boy or girl has impressed, that's it. Done deal. There's no chance in hell that they are not going to remain at the Weyr. They're a dragon rider now. This isn't even up for debate. Also, it should be pretty obvious that there is no such thing as a dragon who doesn't stay as part of a Weyr's fighting strength. I cannot underscore this point enough. Dragon riders stay with other dragon riders in a Weyr and fight thread. They don't go back to their old life and their old home with a dragon and keep on living their normal day-to-day lives with other ambitions in mind. Dragons exist to fight thread. This is a crucially important thing to understand. One more point to consider before I explain how the sexual landscape at a Weyr works is how a mating flight works. I've touched on it, and I'm sure you've got a good picture by now if you've been watching my other episodes, but let me make this the full in-depth explanation. Both gold dragons and green dragons will go into heat. When they do, it happens in one massive burst, almost all of a sudden. At that point, they become nearly wild beasts, driven by lust and passion. These lusts and passions will pass into their riders, as well as anyone else within the Weyr, as the emotions are broadcast in a full and unfettered fashion, telepathically. Basically, everyone in the Weyr becomes horny. No, not the underage children, before you start to feel icky about it. Kids can be affected, but as explained in one of Todd's books, if they're too young to feel sexual arousal, then it just manifests within them as an intense affection for everyone else around them. I believe the phrase which covered it, as told by a dragon rider who remembered the first mating flight that happened around them when they were little, they felt like they wanted to run around hugging everyone. Anyway, when a mating flight occurs, the dragon riders and Weyr folk get caught up in the mood, especially the dragon riders. It's really not something a rider can expect to walk away from with their virginity intact. Most of the time, riders whose dragons are mating will have sex with each other. That's a simple fix. But let's remember, brown dragons can't really expect to successfully catch queen dragons most of the time, so they have to make do with green dragons. If the riders of both dragons are male, and they are gay, then hey, win for them, they go at it. But you don't make a straight man gay or bi no matter what you think. So in the instances where the writers simply do not want to screw each other, well, most of the time they've already made a firm partnership with someone else. So if you think the life of a brown writer wouldn't be for you because you don't want to do a dude, don't worry. You'll probably have a girlfriend and she'll probably be there for you. In general, nobody is left unlaid who has participated in a mating flight, whether or not their dragon catches the female. So, because of these two things, the Weyr in general doesn't really care much about who sleeps with whom. To reiterate, 1. A dragon rider is a dragon rider for life and is not leaving the Weyr. And 2. Mating flights mean people are gonna fuck. So, in a situation like that, do you really think the people are going to be all that fussed over who is gay and who isn't? Of course not. I'm not saying people don't gossip, but it's a fact of life, and so most people deal with it. This openness of sexuality extends to the Weyr folk, too. There's no rule saying dragon riders have to shtup other dragon riders. They can bump uglies with whoever they please, as long as it's consensual. Because of this freedom of sexuality, it's actually pretty common for Weyr folk to be quite content and happy to stay within a Weyr. Hell, it almost makes what I said earlier about the disappointment of failing to impress a dragon too many times in a row seem like a contradiction. The holds are a lot more conservative than the Weyrs. Someone coming back from a Weyr and going around shagging isn't very well appreciated. So I guess it's a 50-50 shot on whether or not someone stays on despite not becoming a dragon rider. Another aspect of Weyr life, which is tied in with the whole sexuality thing, is parentage. Let's face it, caring for a dragon is too hard a job to have any kind of distraction. For that reason, it is pretty much tradition that when a Weyr woman, both lowercase and capital, has a baby, that baby tends to be fostered out to a motherly lady within the Weyr. They become the Weyr's child, and the community really does raise them. This is not at all to say that the mother and father don't care for their love child, but the actual raising of that child will typically be done by the Weyr folk. The kids and parents get to see each other as much as they want, but when daddy's gotta fly thread for 6 hours at a time and might not come back, and when mommy has the same plus seeing to their duties, well, it's best not to form attachments too damn strong. I want to also underscore, bold, italicize, highlight, whatever, another very important thing to understand. One can very easily get the impression, from all they have heard of being a dragon rider, that there is no such thing as a loving monogamous relationship within a Weyr. This is so much not the case that I can barely begin to explain how wrong that thought is. Emotions are central to everything for a dragon and their rider. A dragon loves their rider, intensely, deeply. If their rider is very, very happy with a special someone, the dragon is going to be very, very happy for them. Dragons are ecstatic when their riders are fulfilled and content, so there's no chance a dragon is going to come between a rider and their preferred lover. What's good for the dragons is good for the Weyr, and it takes a blind idiot of a Weyr leader to try and come between another rider and their preferred loving relationship. This, of course, means that if a bronze rider's dragon is off-nailing a queen, if he would much rather be shagging his bae, then arrangements will be made. Trust me, nobody in the Weyr needs romantic drama, and nobody goes without. It is a fully accepted fact of life in the Weyr that people are going to be shagging, and that's the last I speak of Weyr sexuality. Dragon riders enjoy a rather high status on Pern. They're pretty much celebrities. During a pass, a dragon rider is going to be extremely well treated everywhere they go, because he's the guy keeping thread out of your fields and off of your face. They'll often get gifts, and parties will spring from their visits, and they can get mad laid. But there's a downside to all this. Naturally, if any celeb is too obnoxious, they're not going to be incredibly well liked. It's considered to be an extreme poor taste to be rude to a dragon rider, but it's not an actual crime. Anyways, when the pass ends and the interval rolls around, things change. Since thread isn't going to be coming again in anyone's lifetime, or even the lifetime of their children, and possibly their grandchildren, and maybe even their great-grandchildren, and so on, then Dragon Rider's celebrity status goes a bit belly up. I mentioned tithes in the episode about the holds. Tithes are actually the primary and often only source of food and supplies for the Weyrs. Holds send their harvest along to the Weyrs to feed them. During a pass, these tithes are pretty much going to be top tier, grade A, 100% finest quality stuff. During an interval, however, well, the quality and quantity isn't unknown at all to drop off a little. That's not as bad as it sounds. During an interval, dragons don't mate as often, and the clutches aren't as large. Kit Ping Young designed these things well. As a result, Weyr populations will tend to be a lot lower, searches rarer, and the dragon riders won't really honestly be seen as much by the common folk. When the red star begins to come back in for another pass, then the mating flights become more frequent, the clutch is larger, and the search is more common. Tithes start coming back up to better quality, consistency, and frequency. Weyr population goes back up. It is the cycle. So this turned out to be a longer episode, but it kind of has to be. Dragons are the focus of the books. These books are called the Dragon Riders of Pern. I don't think I really have any more to add about the Weyrs in particular. So on that note, I want to thank you all for watching. Once again, I am Alex, also known as Solinus Dracone, and this has been episode 7 of my Pern Primer series. Goodbye.